This is KUGAN CASSIUS for IFL TV, proudly sponsored by Everlast. Delighted to be joined by the IBF champ, Sonny Edwards. What's happening, mate?
Yeah, I'm good. Chilling. Chilling.
You're very relaxed.
I'm in camp, so apart from being in the gym, spend most of my time laid horizontal, to be honest.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, huge news announced today that you are now signed with Probellum. So we know obviously you've fought on their shows, which we'll come on to previously back in December. But yeah, why Probellum?
Well, with the position I was in, being a free agent, and how the fight ended up with Probellum, they was looking for a headliner. They wanted a world title fight, a big fight. My fight was sort of up in the air with Frank. Couldn't get me out before Christmas. I needed to. I wanted this fight that I've got now, or any other big fight in the first part of the year. So I wasn't really trying to stall myself, my mandatory any longer. Um, I don't know. I guess Probellum were happy with how their first show went down. Obviously, I was their very first headliner. Um, we had some good conversations over there. I knew they was interested. I think they liked the way that I go about my boxing business and my approach to the sport. I think they feel I'm a fighter that they could potentially have quite a lot of fun with, especially if the results keep going the way we want them to. Do you know what I mean? So I really will fight anyone. It's as simple as that. It's like I love all these sort of. I just want to take this second to shout out these fighters like uh, Martinez, Rodriguez, especially in my weight, which makes it all the more exciting for me. But these fighters risking, I don't know, their platform, risking their O's or their belts or their credibility, say, to really try and be great. I can't nothing but commend that. And these fighters that I've just mentioned have set a precedent, and I'm looking to follow the same trend. And Probellum, one of the biggest things for me, is not ever wanting to miss out on fights because of being promoter locked. I mean, typically it happens no matter where you go. The conversations I was having with Richard Schaefer and the rest of the team, Harrison Whitman, Ali, everyone down at Probellum, when I was over in Dubai and previous and since, they all sounded positive. They're on the sort of same mentality as me. They're not trying to block the big fights happen. They just want to be involved in them some which way. And they've got good infrastructure, good establishment, and good visions where I see them looking to elevate boxing into a whole new space. I think they're, for me, from what I've heard, that I feel like they're market disruptors. So it made sense, and obviously I've seen firsthand the show over there. It was so professionally run. The teams they've got of people, the experience they've got that you're working with, like it's like from top to bottom. It's got the professional shine over it, and I was impressed with how I was treated and handled and looked after last time with Probellum. So it there was other viable routes we could look to go down, and things I was holding out for. Obviously, I have been waiting on the Martinez fight, but I think with the fight with Wasim looming, he's also one of the Probellum fighters. I'm gonna take over. Like something that's always big to me is being the biggest fish in my stable. Do you know what I mean? Whether it used to be in the gym back in the day, I'd want to be the top kid in the gym at my weight, especially. Whether it was in the country or when I got to pros, all the fighters in my management team, my promoters, I want to make sure I clear them out first before I start looking else. And Wasim straight away is already in-house, sort of made for that. I can take my number one spot as the Probellum flyweight that they're gonna push, even though I'm probably already that anyway. And then just have fun with my boxing career.
When we spoke in Dubai prior to the Jason Rama fight, we spoke about this was kind of allowed at the time. It was kind of a deal that had been reached to allow you to fight on the show between your promoter at the time, Frank Warren, and obviously Probellum. But can you just, I know you've addressed it in other interviews, but can you just kind of address that kind of parting of ways with Frank?
But me and Frank, we had a great working relationship, and the point still stands that if there's ever a time where that is the best place for me in a professional environment, then he's someone I would always be willing to work with. I don't have no horror stories. We had a very good relationship, a good professional relationship. But I sort of, knowing the dynamic of world boxing, and I know being now the biggest fish by a long way in BT in the sense of the flyweights. Like, there's no other big fights out there for me. It's all about bringing opponents in to that. Do you know what I mean? And a lot of these fighters that are well established in other places, it puts you on the back foot straight away. And then you got to think about contractually and financially. There's stipulations about going to fight on other shows. Do you know what I mean? It's a lot more than just someone going over there. Has to make a lot more sense for everyone involved for it to happen because of the standard protocols in boxing. But it got to a point where the fights were in the air. There were some things I wasn't happy with in the sense of just certain relationships inside the company maybe, but Frank always was, was always a diamond towards me, and he did push me very well. And then again, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank him for all the pushing and the platforms that I've got. But he understands business. I mean, one thing I would always make the point of saying is, when it comes to boxing and businessmen, and Frank's up there with the best of them. I mean, he's seen it all. Like, he's been and lived it. He's got experience that a lot of these promoters that have only been here 5 minutes, they wouldn't have the ability to attain in such a short amount of time. Do you know what I mean? So Frank's a great promoter, and he's still developing great fighters. But I think right now, for me, the best place I can be, I think, is with Probellum. But just because right now they're allowing me sort of the keys to world boxing. Do you know what I mean? Any conversation with any opponent around the world we can have. Do you know what I mean? That's what I wanted to make clear. Do you know what I mean?
Let's talk about Martinez, because we know it was recently announced that he comes in to fight Chocolatito on the 5th of March. How serious, were there any serious discussions regarding that fight?
Yeah, like genuinely, if you asked me probably about 10, 11 days before his announcement, I was convinced that I was fighting him next. But there's some reasons behind it. My team are working on making that fight as big as we can. I mean, that's sort of a legacy fight for this stage of my career right now. I mean, it would by far be out there with the biggest win I could get for many a reason, and the background that goes with it, as well as the number one in the division, the Ring Magazine, the WBC. There's a lot that goes to it. It's like one of the reasons I want that fight so bad is because it's like a pre-made, like a Fight Night Champion storyline. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's, like, you know, when sort of things fit in like that, it just, sometimes the stars align. And obviously, you've got to read the signs. You know what I mean? That's the fight I want. He's the one really that I need to be. So everyone turns around and points at me, unless they're from Japan, and says I'm the number one in the division. You know what I mean? Yeah, we was talking. Well, not me and Martinez directly, but I was told they wanted the fight. They were actively trying to, and then we was waiting for something, and then that got delayed, and then in that meanwhile, opportunity of a lifetime comes up to maybe take on a flyweight, super flyweight, great in Roman Gonzalez, probably one of the most lucrative offers he's going to get out there also. And kind of like a no-lose situation, because even if he loses, he comes back as world champion. Like, it is literally a no-brainer. So I made a little joke about, they don't want to fight me. Which, don't get me wrong, I don't genuinely from the bottom of my heart, I think if Eddie could match Martinez's next 5 fights, I wouldn't be anywhere near it. Do you know what I mean?
And why is that? You
I
believe?
think he thinks I'm all wrong for him, like genuinely. Maybe I'm just deluded, but I feel like anytime he's asked about me directly, which I don't expect him to be sat there promoting me, he's not my promoter. But he always finds a good way of, you know what I mean? Not mention his name again. Mate, move up weights. He wants unified big fights. On to the next question. You know what I mean? Well, really, it's an interesting fight that if Eddie put his little creative on it, it would sell very easily. Do you know what I mean? He already made slide digs at my brother in his Christmas wish list, just to let him know I seen that one, Eddie. I don't think I didn't hear that one.
Sorry, what are you referring to?
Oh, when he did, he mentioned Martinez Edwards in his Christmas or 12 fights for
On
next year.
the zone.
Whatever
That was on
yeah,
the zone, yeah.
yeah. And then he went, and he mentioned something. Oh, and when he beat his brother, oh, when, do you know what I mean? And he corrected himself. I can't remember it exactly word for word, but like I know Eddie is very good with his words and doesn't say things by accident. Do you know what I mean? So that one was a little wink from Eddie there, and I appreciated it. But that is a fight I do want, and hopefully I get a chance to fight Martinez. Probably the best fighter in the world right now at my weight, arguably. And go up against head to head with arguably the best promoter in the world right now. I'd love it. I'd relish it. I would like that's big time. That's big time boxing to me. Do you know what I mean? So
Tony, this is more than just avenging your brother's loss, isn't it? Let's make that clear.
but the worst thing is, yeah, that's probably like, the, to be perfectly honest, yeah.
Careful what you say.
No. Like, to be perfectly honest, yeah. Like the only thing that really comes, like, don't get me wrong, like what happens, like that is still my brother. It's still it is what it is. But like, the only reason that would come into it is because by me beating him, yeah, over the Christmas dinner table, that little nod. You know what I mean?
Hold on. It's not to say to Charlie, I did that for you, mate. It's to say, oh, look what I did and you couldn't, basically.
No, but you've got to remember, though. You've got to remember, yeah. You've got to remember that a big reason that I am as good as I am is my older brother. Like, he's part of me because I am so competitive, yeah. So competitive to anyone, KUGAN, yeah. To anyone about anything, I'm competitive. Then give me a brother that's a couple years ahead of me, a couple bit bigger than me, a little bit better looking than me, and we do the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's always been the person I'm trying to go through. Do you know what I mean? Like, even without knowing about it when I'm younger, like, he was the benchmark. He was always winning European gold medals as a 14-year-old, GB at 15, senior ABAs at 17, European bronze medal 18, Commonwealth game. He's always been sick and always achieved. Like, I know sometimes people just remember the last performance, and then because his last big fight, maybe he's not really caught a light again yet. But like, he's always done good, and I've always had that just in front of me. So like, this is like, you know what I mean? But it's not like out of a place of like jealousy, because I always want my brother to do the best. I want us to both to do the best, like, without a shadow of a doubt. But I'm also realistic as a boxing fan and as maybe a boxing insider of some sorts, that I know certain pressure points that make something that little bit more special, the stakes that little bit more higher, a little bit more personal. You know what I mean? This fight ticks pretty much every single box across the book, even to the complete contrasting styles where certain people will be adamant it'll be a 12-round schooling, other people adamant it's not going past 6 minutes. Like, you know what? I should be a boxing promoter, really, shouldn't I? I sold you that fight there, didn't I?
Yeah, there's a brief. I think you actually did.
It's a good
So
fight.
obviously see what happens regarding that, but the focus for you now is March 19th and Mohammed Wasim. So Mohammed Wasim, last day in action on the Dubai show back in November on the Space, at the Space. That was his last fight. Talk to me about him. How much of a test is this going to be for you?
I think Wasim's a decent fighter. I've said it before, and even though I mean no disrespect. I'm just being honest, and it probably will come across quite disrespectfully. Like, I was a bit disappointed that Muhammad Wasim was the carrot that's getting waved in my stick next. You know what I mean? Like, he's a tough fighter, but I just don't think he's on my level, to be honest. I think he was a good fight maybe a couple of years ago. I think since that Maruti fight took a lot out of him where he got beat, bear in mind. I don't know. He's not caught a light once. He's not had a performance that's had anyone talking about him. So for me, he's kind of like the faded fighter, like in my opinion. And he was trained by my old coach Danny Vaughan. So I personally, and I like Danny, and I've been saying this, but I don't personally think Danny's got it in him to train a fighter that'll beat me. I don't like, and that's it. And definitely not with Wasim. I think you need a much better fighter than Wasim to beat me. Maybe one of these Uzbek, Kazakh Olympian gold medalists or something you might get, but not a Wasim. No.
So, if things go your way on March 19th, will you be pushing to kind of unify at some point this year? Is that the next goal at that weight?
Yeah, I mean, even though I'm not letting no one stall my career, I'm kind of still looking at what Martinez's next move is, because, like I just said, that fight makes the most sense and probably will do. Even if he gets beat by Gonzalez, probably still make the most sense if he retains the world title, which he will, as a flyweight. But if not, just big fights, big fights. I want ever make sense. I mean, if Martinez goes and loses to Gonzalez and doesn't want to fight me, who's to say that Eddie don't give me a chance to go? You know what I mean? I've been wanting one of his fighters for a little bit now, but
Who?
just any.
I think obviously with your move to Probellum, this is going to allow you, which is one of the best things I've seen with Probellum over the last sort of few months, is that their willingness to obviously work with any promoter. We can see how many promotions up and down, not even just Europe, but just abroad, Africa, America, everywhere, their willingness to work with them. And I think that that'll obviously benefit you, which is what you kind of pointed out earlier in the interview.
Yeah, I mean, well, when their approach is that every table they're sitting down when it's a fight that their fighter wants, that they are really trying to make a close, like they're trying to make a closing deal. They're trying to make it fair. They're trying to make it so every party's happy. But there's usually like a sweet spot, and there's usually a closest range that they can get. A lot of these promoters typically won't allow anything near that, like realistic. They just want everything in their favor. They want to get overpaid, or they're not even willing to negotiate or discuss things on a friendly terms, because there's always little slide things getting shut left, right, and centre, and calls not getting answered, or do you know what I mean? Or step at, like, it's all usually quite confusing. But with it being quite a new entity, if they start as they mean to go on, and the other promoters see the benefit of the unity between promoters rather than the sort of warring, maybe, then it's better for the fighters, because the amount of times careers get stalled, and sometimes people just miss their optimal, miss their peak, or miss their prime. Like, there's a lot of reasons that happens anyway in boxing. A lot of reasons, maybe injuries, maybe being avoided, but it doesn't need to be promoters. Like, that should never be a reason as why a fight's not happening at the right time, especially when both fighters want it. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, well, Sonny, look, we'll obviously catch up in Dubai on fight week, double header that weekend, obviously, as well. 2 Probellum shows on the Friday and the Saturday as well. So, yeah, good to see things are going well for you, mate.
Yeah, it's going good.
Have you got anything else you want to
Um, it's mad because I never really think about these until the moment, and then I just say, "Nah, I don't." So, nah, I don't. Thanks to all my sponsors, you know they are. Massive thank you to MTK, my managers, Anto, my advisor, Daniel Kinahan. I want to thank Probellum, the whole team there, top to bottom. I've mentioned a few of their names already. And I just want to take a second to thank a man that, this might get a bit emotional, this one, because so have your tissues ready. No, but in all seriousness, to thank a man that at the time I probably might have not realized just how much or credited just how much he was an influence to my boxing career and my style and my enjoyment of boxing. But I want to say rest in peace to Sir Bobby Beck, Uncle Bobby from the Repton Boxing Gym, but that's when I was under his tutelage. I mean, just want to take a little second to shed light on so many fighters that come through that were so lucky and blessed. I mean, going to a gym where a few times a week you're sparring however many rounds against national champions, and there's 10, 15 kids at all the different weights growing up, and there's about 70, 80 lads in there. It, like, to have that environment, there's no way, like, there's no wonder why so many great fighters have come from that background. And you know, it's really sad to hear that Bobby passed away, because a lot of people don't know that when I quit boxing when I was younger, it was Bobby Beck. That even though even not like he was reaching out to me, but it was him when he had trained me previously when I weren't at Repton, that made me want to come back to boxing. Because the only place I'd go when I wanted to go back to boxing after 7 months, it only weren't long, but was Repton. I didn't want to go to no other gym. Yeah, and then I went there having never won a national title in my life, and then I dominated the next 6 championships, 5 winning with Repton and Bobby Beck. So yeah, yeah, that's what I want to say. That's what I want to say.
I'm sure a lot of people echo those thoughts. Yeah, rest in peace, Bobby Beck, 100%. All right, Sonny. Well, as I said, we'll catch up in Dubai around this time next month.
Well, KUGAN.
Best of luck in the rest of camp.
Cheers, mate.
And appreciate your time as always.
No worries. Are we smiling like that?
Thank you very much. KUGAN CASSIUS here with Sonny Edwards. Thank you very much.